This is the first black congressman in Rhode Island history. Right, this man made it all the way from Pawtucket all the way to the White House. Gabe Amos, United States representative, representing the first congressional district of Rhode Island. Welcome to the studio, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Long-time listener, first-time caller, I think they say. And, I hope you all got a lot of Drake Kendrick conversation loaded up for me to talk about. But excited to be on with you because, you know, at the top, I think it's really important that people who do my job do as much as we can to go meet people where they are, right? It's one thing to be in an office, go to an event, do a press conference, all of the traditional media. Yeah. But your viewership, your listenership is broad and represents our state. So I should, you know, go out and find you where you are.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much, man. Listen, I agree. You know, I think it's very important to have these type of conversations. We've always been open to it. You know, we've had different political figures in the studio. We've had all walks of life in here.
Because you had Alorza here?
Yeah, we had Alorza. We've had multiple city reps, city staff members in here. You know, all walks of life. Like we've interviewed rabbis. We've interviewed, you know, what's the gentleman's name we had from the Muslim church that was in here? I think they came in twice.
Yeah, he was hard. He was
one of the imams.
Yeah, one of the imams. I forgot his name.
Like the council for
locally.
Yeah, locally.
But shout out to him. We've had, you know, I could talk about anything. You know, I'm very multi-dimensional, so I love having conversations about everything. But focusing on just your history when it comes to, you know, talk to the people, right? From Pawtucket, Rhode Island, making multiple accounts of history. You're a part of, obviously, political history, Rhode Island history, black history. What you've done, you know, has been something that is extremely influential for people that come up from this state, small state in the country, and they want to get in the political world. They see you as someone that made it possible and has done it. Talk to the people. Start from the beginning. Your story. You were born and raised here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island?
I was born like 8 out of 10 babies at Women and Infants Hospital. So my dad's from Ghana. Okay. My mom's from Liberia. Okay. And they met in Rhode Island, in South Providence in the, you know, mid-'80s. I was born in 87. My dad owns a liquor store just down the road. He's on Hartford Avenue. Wow. In Olneyville, but he, you know, was working in factories. He took all his savings. The first house he, you know, lived in was on Perry Street in Central Falls, and eventually built a house in CF and lived there for a chunk of my childhood. My mom lived in Pawtucket. My parents never got married, but my mom and I lived in Pawtucket first, next to near Varrier School in Pawtucket, and then later where I spent most of my formative years on Sisson Street in Pawtucket. And in fact, my district office is probably less than a quarter of a mile away from that triple-decker that we lived in Pawtucket. And so grew up, went to Catholic school, St. Mary's School in Pawtucket, from kindergarten to 8th grade, so small community. And in fact, I still see some of my classmates. You know, when you go to school in a class of 20-plus people, you guys get real close. And some of them I knew from the time I was 4 years old to the time till today. In fact, I was the best man in a wedding of one of those people. Yeah. And then went to high school in Moses Brown. I, you know, won a scholarship to go over there. You know, I've been fixated on wanting to be in public service in some way or another, whether I was going to, you know, I didn't know if I would be a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that, but I always had that attraction to it, and I was, you know, a bit of a nerd when I was younger. I was consumed with wanting to do well in school because my sense was, all right, that's going to be my ticket to reach my dreams. Yeah. So went to Moses Brown, was involved, played high school football, was president of the student senate, but got involved in local things, volunteering and politics. And it energized me. But it was always a way for me, I thought, to use, you know, my talents. So first campaigns I worked for Sheldon Whitehouse when he ran for the Senate in 2006. Went to college at Wheaton, right down the road in Norton, Massachusetts. Yeah. And so was involved there, got involved in campaigns. It just sort of you sort of get in the rhythm of things. And if you want to keep going, my belief is if you work hard and you build relationships. 90% of these things are, did you work with people who are willing to say positive things about you when you're going to go to the next thing? And I just happened to build really strong colleagues from that first race in '06 to I was a super volunteer, late help leader on the Obama '08 campaign. Went to grad school in the UK at Oxford, won a scholarship to do that. And then when I came back, the thing I wanted to do the most was help President Obama win re-election. So I moved to Chicago for a year and worked on his re-election. And then after that, had an opportunity to work in the White House. The first time I was 24 years old.
Wow.
25, I think. Did that for 2 years, and I wanted to come home. So worked for Gina Raimondo when she was governor for 4 years. Handled a lot of the outreach, external affairs portfolio. And, that one thing led to another. Ended up back in a White House. And then when David Cicilline announced he was leaving in, I think it was February of 2023, I thought, why not me? I feel like I had the experience. I love this place. I love this people. This is where my life has been focused when I haven't been in the UK or in DC or that, short stint in Chicago. I've been here.
Yeah.
My whole life is here. My identity is here. People I want to serve, who I want to see do better are here. So, for me, it was a no-brainer to run. I had to ask myself a lot of questions, and I knew win or lose that it was the right thing to do, because trying to achieve not only dreams for yourself, but for others, that's something where you never go wrong. I believe that. And it's corny sounding, but I do believe that's why I'm in this.
Yeah. And going back to that time, break it down to the people recalling that moment. What was your first ever, interaction with former President Barack Obama and meeting him?
So it's wild. He did his big speech in '04 at the convention in Boston.
Yeah.
And then in 2006, there were a lot of elections happening around the country. So essentially, he was traveling. He came here to boost Sheldon White House, and there was a group of us who had been following him because his book, Dreams of My Father, had been out. The dude was clearly going somewhere. Whether he was going to be president or not, I wasn't certain. But I said, I want to be like this guy, right? Yeah. Like, that's like, he's the politics equivalent of MJ, right? Like, LeBron patterned his game. He says he patterned after Magic too, but like MJ, right? You see that Barack Obama's MJ, and so we saw him at what's the hotel next to the Narragansett Brewery on Tockwatton. That Hilton Garden Inn used to be something else. And so he was going to rest for the night, but they had tipped us off that he was going. So a group of us, and I was 18 years old at the time. And I'm standing in the picture next to him because I was the only one who had a copy of the book. So I held the book right next to him, and he dapped me up. It was like a proper dap. And that was the first time I met him, and like spellbound, magical.
Yeah.
That's like, they say you don't want to meet your heroes. Nah, I wanted to meet this hero.
Yeah.
And it set me off on a different trajectory for sure.
Wow. And then from meeting him, what was the first moment of actually working for him?
So first moment of actually working was in the primary in December of '07. I had gone up to New Hampshire to go knock on some doors because, he had a contentious primary season, right? The first 4 primaries back then were Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada.
Yeah.
And New Hampshire was the first actual primary. Iowa was called a caucus. And so it was really contentious. He didn't win it. Yeah. But that's where a famous speech with the Will.i.am song interplayed on his speech, that's where that came from. But I went, knocked on doors for him. I wouldn't say I was working for him per se, but I was, volunteering my time and efforts, because you always got to be humble about this stuff. Like, people like to sweat that they worked for somebody. I was knocking on doors, asking people, do you support him? Do you support Hillary? Do you support John Edwards? Who do you, that sort of thing. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then now, looking back at it, what would you say was your favorite, time during the Obama presidencies and, your actual participation of them as well?
I mean, I will tell you, when you are a young person in these places, it is a little crazy how much responsibility they give you.
Yeah.
So I think about some of the work I did. You remember the Ebola crisis?
Mm-hmm.
So in October of 2014, there were a couple of Ebola cases, right? Deadly disease. It was in West Africa. Some people had come over. Some group to Texas. Another was a doctor who I actually met. He's at Brown University right now, who went to New York City.
Wow.
And he went bowling. He didn't know he had Ebola, and so he was spreading the disease.
A bowling with Ebola. It's
A
crazy.
bowling with Ebola, yeah.
A bowling with Ebola.
It was wild. So, and it's wild. I was at an event. He rolled up to me and he said, "I'm the guy you were just talking about." I was doing a talk at the public health school at Brown. It was wild.
Wow.
So I'm in this meeting, and they're like, "We need somebody from this team, the intergovernmental affairs team." So that means I was managing relationships, governors, mayors, etc., across the country, and they're like, "Yo, we have to figure out how to get the waste from the Ebola patient." Because, Ebola, because it's a skin-borne thing, they're changing bed sheets, they're changing everything that this person is interacting with. And they were trying to figure out how to get that waste from New York, where the patient was, all the way down to Louisiana to be incinerated. So they had one of these like medical waste trucks, and they're asking me, "Hey, can you figure out how to work with the governors in these states?" And I'm like, I'm 26 years old. You're asking me to figure this out? And, here's the thing. Like, when there's a problem, you have to step up. Doesn't matter how old you are, what the experience is.
Yeah.
So I was getting yelled at by all these Republican governors, chiefs of staff. They're like, "We don't want that coming through our state," because everybody was fearing and panicked. It's sort of like where we were early COVID, where we didn't know what was happening. It was the same thing. So some of them had police cars escorting the trucks, the waste trucks, into their states so it could get out. So, I mean, that's like, I bring that moment up because that's like needing to show up under pressure.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter, who you were the next man up.
Yeah.
And in politics and in government, it's often like that. You have to rise to the occasion, to the moment. Whether people are going to feel you, or whether your ideas are going to be right, or whether you have the solutions, that's a whole different story. But you got to step up. You got to be in the arena. So I think about moments like that, and then of course I think the biggest amount of pride is like walking your mom into the Oval Office to meet the president.
Yeah.
Right. We did that in December of 2015. I had left the White House and I went back and I got to take a few of my brothers. I got 5 brothers and 2 sisters. It's a lot of us.
Big family.
Blended family, got a lot of that, and I love everybody. But being able to take my mom to meet the president, and she was speechless. She didn't say anything. She just sort of nodded her head. Because the Oval Office, when you go into that room, it is bright. It's like being in a studio.
Yeah.
And the lighting is really harsh on your eyes when you're getting used to it. And then you see somebody you see on TV, like the president, and it doesn't look real. Like when you shake his hand, it just doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
Right. And
like a movie or
some
something.
time, it's like a movie. And so that was, I would say, another cool part of that role.
Wow. And then just to give like a kind of like insider's look, like what was your experience in and you still are at the White House, right?
No. So I'm at the Capitol now as a representative. But I did work for President Biden for 2 years.
Okay.
From the first day where I actually started on my couch at the Rising Sun Mills. Because we're in COVID, so we were all working remotely. Wow. To my last day there, April 10th of 2023, when I resigned to run for Congress.
Oh wow! So what has been like the aside from the Oval Office, what's been like the craziest like moment inside this White House and experiencing just the historical building that only a few people get to actually step inside, and you actually being there? What was some of the is it like a secret alien room? Like what?
Well, they got the situation room they tell you about, right?
Yeah.
It's a series of conference rooms, but you do have I had the highest security clearance.
Okay.
But the thing about a security clearance, you can have a high one, but it doesn't mean they tell you everything. It's still on a need to know basis.
Okay.
Right. So like then, I mean, there are things that I know that I can't talk about, but because
alien stuff or.
Look, I can't confirm or deny
Oh my
if it's
God.
alien. I can't confirm or deny, but I'll tell you there are. Look, it's a wild old building. There's like passageways. The original frame of the building is actually still kind of there.
Wow.
But it's most of the time. So there's the Eisenhower Executive Office building. It's a big Gothic looking building that's right next to the White House. That's where most people sit.
Yeah.
The Oval Office is tiny. There are a few offices on that first floor, some offices on the second floor. Like my direct boss, this last time around, a woman by the name of Julie Chavez Rodriguez, the granddaughter of Cesar Chavez, worked on the second floor of that. So I'd be in and out every day, for meetings and things like that. There's the Navy does all the catering, and you got an account. It's called a Navy mess account, and so they make food. You go up, it's a takeout window, but they have a dining room that looks like the hull of a ship, and it's just very is cool, like to bring people that I didn't eat there every day.
Is the food good? Food good?
Food was slamming.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the naval chefs. Think about it. On a ship,
Yeah.
the one thing people need is good food.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And so these people were like, some of these people had served tours of duty and came back and were like the chefs.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But like, look, more broadly, I was there on really bad days. Like all these mass shootings, Uvalde, I was there calling the leaders of that community, trying to help them respond. Highland Park, they had a parade. There was a shooting. Buffalo, that racist shooting in the grocery store. So that's, when you do intergovernmental affairs, it means like I'm the first person to pick up the phone and call a mayor and say, what just happened? How can I help? What support do you need?
Wow.
So bad days, and you think about those days all the time. And that's why I care about issues like gun violence prevention. I think about like bad days. You remember the Surfside building when that collapsed? Within 20 minutes, I was on the phone with the mayor of Surfside, right? And you have to respond to people's problems. That's honestly the worst part, but also the best part, right? The worst part is that people are struggling and they need support. The best part is that you're useful.
Yeah.
And that you got to be there in position to help people when they're in a time of need. And that was the most important part, because the people look towards the Oval Office, towards the White House as a special place. That's why, we don't have to go all the way down this road. That's why I'm so distressed about what we see right now, because that whole mission, that whole operation has to be about trying to help people when you need or when they need help the most.
Yeah.
And that's what, I was grateful to be able to do.
And when it comes to going back, right, what was your role during the Gina Raimondo situation? What was your role specifically?
So my title was Director of Public Engagement and Community Affairs. So my role was essentially around all the external things like relationships with business, chambers of commerce, with labor unions, helping to manage that, outside stakeholder groups. So I spent a lot of time with like Moms Demand Action, other people doing gun violence prevention work, spent time with environmentalists, spent time with the range of people who had an opportunity to partner with us on things, or who were upset about something. I spent a lot of time with people saying, I don't like this thing or that thing, and I would take those meetings.
Yeah. And then looking back at it, right, Gina Raimondo, going from Rhode Island, leaving her job as governor to now work in the White House, right? Correct.
Well,
what's
her
role
building is
specifically?
next. She was the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, but a member of the cabinet, like 10th, I think the 7th, in the top 10 of the rankings of cabinet members. Yeah. Pretty high position.
Yeah, high position. And then people always remember the Gina years, especially because of the pandemic, right? Gina. Looking back at a lot of the criticism that Gina Raimondo faced as a governor, what's your take on it now? Looking back, since now we have, Dan McKee, it's a newer situation, but people always recall the Gina years, like, whether it was positive or negative, go Gina, no, leave, get out of here, Gina. It was a very, like, I feel like one of the most social media, especially era trendy,
memes.
Meme. Always like a Gina Raimondo meme. I had like a local music playlist I made, like the PVD Sound with a bunch of local rappers, and I had like a Gina Raimondo on like the cover of it, and people loved it. So very famous woman when it comes to Rhode Island history, and you were a part of it. But looking back at it, what's your take on a lot of the criticism that people either loved or hated Gina for? Look,
there's that quote from Teddy Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts, it's the man in the arena.
Yeah.
Right? being governor is hard. You got to make decisions every day. So I think it connects with our lives. I talk to Governor McKee all the time. I knew other governors. It's a hard job because you got everything from roads and bridges to schools to our healthcare system. Medicaid is state and federal. You got everything related to our coastline in the state. We're the ocean state, so that matters to people. You've got the Department of Corrections. You got the state police. You have all of these things. I don't aspire to be the governor. That
You never thought about it. You never thought after Gina, like, oh, let me go for it.
I don't aspire to it because I have seen it up close, and it's a tough job. Not that I don't want to do it because being in Congress, I'll tell you, is plenty tough. But your ability to manage things, and you have such a big apparatus of things that you can control. But it's more important that you are deputized well, that you have great people working for you. So I would say people sometimes don't understand all that goes into it. Like when you do these jobs in public service, you're putting your whole life into it, right? Your family is living it. Everybody's living it. And that's because you care about people that much. And so managing a state, even a small state, you got to manage every nook and cranny. You are dealing with a range of things. When I would say in those senior staff meetings, like literally, you name it, it could come up, from public health to public safety to schools to all the things you can do. Now there's a lot of opportunity to do good, and you got to unlock that. When I worked for her, she had this thing, computer science, for Rhode Island, to try to get every student to have computer science education. We did some work on gun violence prevention together, helped make sure that this paid sick leave reflected the positions of everybody at the stakeholder table. You had certainly protection of our coastline. Yeah, there were a lot of things there. At the end of the day, you got to make a lot of decisions, and so you're not going to have fans on every single one of them. Yeah. I don't believe it's possible, because for every position there's an opposite position, right? Mm-hmm. And you will never appease the people who never liked you to begin with either, right? Like that's baked in, right? You got elected. I got 64% of the vote twice, or 64 then 63, something like that. So I got to think about every day, not just the 63, but the 37 who said, I don't want you. Yeah. All right. And that's going to be the case with any elected official. You will have people who are not with you, and you still work for them.
Yeah. And then going back also to your time with Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden, what would you call some of the best and worst times that you faced during the Biden administration?
Look, I think on the worst, I was there, August of 2021. Was it 2021? 2022. The withdrawal from Afghanistan, right? It was not smooth, and it lowered the president's public perception. His approval ratings were very high for a bit. It caused a dip there, and what it did was, because I think ultimately I don't know every bit that went into that decision. They based everything on the facts that they had, but what it did cause was dissension. It caused like a lack of unity amongst both Democrats, but also the mission, right? And I would say a great thing that came out of that is the Operation Allies Welcome that resettled Afghan people here all across the country. We have some amazing young women who are at Brown University who went through hell in a place where women aren't even allowed to speak in public. Mm-hmm. And now these young women are powerful women who are trying to improve their country from afar. So that withdrawal, though, was tough. Some of the worst days were like some of those mass shootings, some of those national tragedies. I mean, I've seen really bad things, right? Tornadoes, the deep freeze that happened over the Southwest in
Yeah.
February of 2021. Seeing people suffer and in pain is always terrible. Like that's the part of this job, of any job where you're focused on people, that doesn't escape you. And I don't care where you're helping people. I think about my mom in nursing homes. My mom's worked in nursing homes her adult career, and I think about the time she would come home and tell me this patient died or something. It doesn't matter wherever you work. All the people in public safety, when someone dies or someone feels pain, that hurts you too. That's human. And so all of those moments are tough. Now, in terms of good things, great things, I mean, there was historic legislation passed that helped do so much. I think about the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's real wonky, but all it is transformative money to get people to work, right, and us to invest in our country. Building out the Chips and Science Act. That's helping us build semiconductors here in this country. That's something America should be doing. The Inflation Reduction Act, combating climate change. That's an existential threat, not just for us, but for our kids. Now, I don't have a child yet, but at some point, I want them to have a clean energy future. I want them to not look at climate change as something that is going to shape their lives and determine their outcomes, right? We had a big bill to do that. Now, the current president's going to undo that, but that was significant. And then, of course, I think about all of the ways that we sort of tried to bring the world together. Right. Remember, those first 4 Trump years, we withdrew from things. In the Biden years, it was getting back to it. And I do want our world to come together. We're stronger. We're better off together. But, I had lots of good days there. But I'll tell you, being able to work for Rhode Islanders directly in this job, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. I got to work for every American in the other job, but I was further down the totem pole here. Getting to work for Rhode Islanders and be known for that means a lot to me.
And break down what your position actually means, right?
Yeah.
Like people see it, long title, United States Representative, representing the 1st Congressional District of Rhode Island. But what does that entail? Like, what is that, how's that job description actually? Like, what's your day-to-day? What did you do?
Yeah, let's break it down. So we got 2 members of Congress in Rhode Island, right? You got me and Seth Magaziner. Seth has the western part of the state. I have the eastern part of the state. Way to think of it is go from Woonsocket all the way down the Blackstone Valley, down the East Bay, Barrington, Bristol, Warren, and then go to Aquidneck Island, Newport, Middletown, Portsmouth, and then a little over east, Little Compton, Tiverton. So I got Pawtucket, I got Central Falls, I got Cumberland, but then all of those coastal communities. Yeah. And so that's about 550,000 people. We got something like 1.1 here in the state. I've got slightly smaller in population. What that means day to day is functionally in the Constitution, I vote on behalf of the people of the 1st Congressional District on a range of things, the big pieces of legislation to the small. So someone might have a resolution saying, Happy Martin Luther King Day, to voting on whether we're keeping the government open.
Yeah.
Right? Everything in between.
Wow.
So all the funding bills, every dollar that the federal government spends is appropriated, which means it's designated to be spent by Congress. Congress has the power of the purse. That's in the 1st article of the Constitution. So that is our power, is how we spend money. Now, sometimes we tell the executive branch how to spend it in a very specific way. Other times we do it in a very broad way.
Yeah.
Other than that, the things that I do there's a lot of constituent services. So if anybody ever needs help with a passport, help with the IRS issue, help with, frankly, any government issue, there's no wrong door. We'll help get people to the right place. They can call our office, right? They can go to my website, amo.house.gov. You can log stuff in. But I'm also like a city wall that you can express your complaints against, right?
Yeah.
If I take meetings with constituents whenever I'm not here all the time. That's my biggest challenge. So there is a little bit of a backlog, but I am in Washington 3 to 4 days a week, about 2 to 3 weeks a month.
Wow.
So for example, I got in last time we were supposed to get to link up. I got in late on my from Washington
Yeah.
because I go back and forth like almost every week.
Yeah.
And so I'll be in Washington for 4 days next week. I'll be there for 4 days the following week, and I come home every weekend because that's when I can get up with constituents, right?
Yeah.
Parades, events, coffee hours, that whole 9 yards. So essentially serving as our voice, one of our voices in Washington, doing that alongside Jack Reed and Sheldon Whitehouse in the Senate, and then in the House, me and Seth.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very important role, especially because, I'm not a political expert, so that almost was like kind of like a question for myself too, to be honest.
Yeah, just think of us like your state rep or your state senator just on the national level.
Yeah.
Right? It's I just got more territory and a wider set of issues.
Yeah.
So in Congress I also serve on committees. So I serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I serve on the Budget Committee, and I serve on the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology.
Yeah.
And so each of those has a different purview. And then I also serve in caucuses. So I'm a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm a member of the Future Forum Caucus, Democratic members under the age of 50. I also am a co-chair of the UK Caucus. So you remember I told you before,
Yeah.
I lived in the UK for some graduate study, and so now I have that formal tie to the work in Britain.
Yeah. And let's get to some more, for lack of a better term, some more realer shit, what's going on right now.
Yeah, hit me.
I'll pivot to Noel in a second, but first I do want to ask, from what I've seen, right, you have recently gone viral online for your opinion and your take on Donald Trump and Elon Musk specifically. I've seen you at protests, outside speaking as well, and it's one of the most crazy, in my opinion, one of the craziest times I've ever seen when it comes to politics in general, right? Aside from it just being Donald Trump, right, a celebrity turned president, it's his second time, right, being the president. And when it comes to the Constitution and, legally, his last time that he can be.
That's what I'm
right,
hoping.
as of right now, right? So it feels like the guy's going out with a bang, whether you love him or hate him, right? There is so much, constant everyday news, new things that he's writing into or wants to, be put into law, new legislation, new takes on things, new rumored actual changes are going to happen. And it's only been about 2.5 months, right?
56 days.
56 days. Oh,
I've
you
been
know
counting.
the amount exactly. 56 days, right? So what's been the number one issue that you have, had the strongest opinion on, or the thing that bothers you the most, or that you just feel the most strongly about during this current administration right now with Trump and obviously Vice President J.D. Vance, but a lot of people argue it feels like Elon Musk right now is the vice president with all the
He's the co-president.
attention. Yeah.
You don't see a picture of Donald Trump without seeing a picture of Elon Musk. I was just on IG before I came in. You got, I don't know why Conor McGregor's there for St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, today I saw that.
Today. And at the Oval Office, it's Conor, McGregor, Trump, some other people in the picture. And then Elon. Elon is always there. Like, did he buy the presidency? Like, just like he bought his other companies, because he didn't come up with all those ideas himself, right? Like, people just like to make him out to be the super genius. He didn't do all of this himself. But fact of the matter is, my biggest contention is handing over the presidency to Elon Musk. He's unelected. Nobody elected him. We didn't elect him. So why does he get to make the decisions on firing hundreds of thousands of people from federal agencies, people who work in Rhode Island at the USDA, NOAA, EPA, you name it? Like, what? He did not get that authority from us, yet he is there every day. He's got an office in the building I used to work in. I'm convinced he actually sits in the Oval Office every day. He's riding on Marine One, the presidential helicopter, the iconic image of the president leaving. He's rolling out with the president every weekend to Mar-a-Lago. He's like staying
the tight end.
I think he's got a room in every residence.
Yeah.
Like, Trump goes home every weekend to Florida and Elon's with him on the plane. And he's not a real employee because he's got tens of billions of dollars in contracts, from SpaceX to Tesla, State Department buying cyber trucks because they're armored vehicles, essentially. He's got contracts at National Weather Service, all sorts of things. Because the Starlink stuff, it's actually interesting technology. I just don't want the person who's got tens of billions of dollars on the line determining where everything is going. And they're cutting. Doge is cutting all these things. Why don't we know the conflicts of interest? Because when I worked at the White House, and you can still find this online, I had to fill out an ethics form every year saying how much money I made, where the money was coming from, what's in my accounts, how much debt, all of that. I still have to do that as a member of Congress.
Yeah.
You can find that online. So sometimes people say, "Oh, you're doing this to be a millionaire." Trust me. Look at I'm the same OG. Like literally, I have not acquired anything, but I don't know what Elon has.
Yeah.
Why don't we know that? So the biggest outrage is letting him be the co-president every single day.
And what would you say to people that say online that are in agreement with Elon? I see a lot of people argue the idea of, well, he's getting us a lot of money, right? Sounds like a good thing. There's a lot of corruption in the government, and they're taking a lot of money, and we're saving a lot of money, millions of dollars. What's your take on that response? So people justifying that?
They haven't proven it. They haven't proven it. Look, if we got the power of the purse in Congress, we're supposed to be determining this. If he wanted to run a real process, he could involve members of Congress. He could have a bipartisan commission. Bill Clinton did this. He had a bipartisan commission. He brought people together. He said, if we're going to cut positions and all of that, let's do it. But they're taking a sledgehammer, exercising power and authority that is not vested in them by the Constitution or the people to effectively run roughshod over our government. Like, nobody should have that power without it being given to them properly by the people. And so if they want to find waste, fraud, and abuse, I'm cool with that. I think we should. Look, I'm a taxpayer, you're taxpayers. You don't want your money going to the wrong places.
Yeah.
But how do I know that they're doing something that's not just making them richer?
Yeah.
How do I know? Right? Like, they want to complain about corruption. They're in charge. Show me that you're not corrupt. Because right now, all you're proving to me is that you are corrupt. Is because you're doing it in the shadows. Anytime someone's hiding something from you, they're hiding it for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing.
Yeah. No, listen, it's something where I can see that argument, because it's like, Doge was something that never existed. They created this position, and obviously Elon wasn't elected for this position. No one voted at him. Trump just brought him in, which is crazy, because obviously he can do that as president. He's granted so much power when it comes to that. No, I'll go. It's like
what's happening, man?
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you, man.
So
I think we met a long time ago.
No, we
too.
have. So I'm
That's what I was
gonna kind of
say.
like we're jogging memory here.
Yeah,
so
youth
I
in
actually,
action.
Oh no.
Young
NAACP.
NAACP. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you weren't before. You weren't in college.
Yeah.
You were in high school.
Yeah.
You're
I know
way
Jason,
older than me now.
No, I'm 26.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
It's okay. I actually know Jason Royas.
Yeah.
I've helped.
Good dude.
I've helped manage campaigns with him. I'm just saying this so you understand
Yeah.
like,
He's a good
my
dude.
knowledge level in this situation. I managed a couple city council campaigns with him. We've got a couple people in. I also majored political science, economics.
Did
last
you?
year at URI.
You all right? What year are you were all right?
2022.
Okay, 22.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had two brothers there. That's why I was trying to figure
What's
out
their
the years. Kerwin and Brandon.
I think so. Did they go to Bond?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Bond too.
Yeah.
I probably know.
Brandon. I think Brandon was more active in Bond, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to see the face, but I'm pretty sure. So the reason I tell you that is because, so I'm gonna give you grace here. I know you're a junior representative. You ain't got pull in there, so I'm not expecting anything from you.
I think pull is in the eye of the beholder.
Holder, of course, but
Yeah.
I'm also hip to game.
Yeah.
So I understand that it's unfair to have high expectations for you. So a lot of my questions are designed to see where your mind will be, because you're not going to get unelected. I'm not stupid. I know how Rhode Island works.
I don't know. I got to work hard every election.
Well, we'll get into that because we're going to talk about the future of your party. So, but the reality is when it comes to Rhode Island, once you're in that seat, you're ingrained. There's a reason why Jack Reed's been there for so long. There's a reason why Sheldon Whitehouse has been there so long. Langevin, Cicilline. So let's say you're year 6, 7, maybe 8. First question, the Ukraine issue.
Yeah.
Because I watched Zelensky get bullied. I studied Russian foreign policy when I was at URI. Actually, my professor was, he worked in the Pentagon. He worked in the Bush.
What's the name?
I forgot his name, but he's glasses, white, kind of awkward dude. Loved him though, amazing guy. No, yeah, but he was brilliant. He literally met Putin a bunch of times. He grew up in the Ukraine, and a lot of the stuff that he was teaching us was about this Ukraine issue and just how Russian foreign policy operates. And I get it. Your party has a script. I hope we can go beyond the script.
Yeah.
in
What
this
do you think the
conversation.
script is?
The script is that Vladimir Putin is a tyrant and that he is a threat, an existential threat to the safety of Europe and American democracy in general.
I think that's more than just the party, though.
Here's my thing.
Yeah. But go for it. Yeah.
I also understand that there's a history with Putin where, let's start off with a few things. First off, NATO exists solely because of Russia. There is a Russia phobia in this country. And the existence of NATO originally, until this day, whether you want to play around with the definition or not, is to check Russia. And that's why the whole issue with the Ukraine exists, because of this fact that the United States, especially during Obama, continued to try to push this initiative to get the Ukraine under NATO, which was the best solution for them because we forced them to give up their nuclear weapons. So, you know, when I'm watching just how Russia's behaving, and Russia has repeatedly attempted in the past to do good faith actions with the United States, and obviously they've done bad faith actions, as we've done with our own allies and we've done on the international scale. But like, you've seen good faith actions, and we've always blew it off because there is an inherent Russia phobia in this country. I have to ask you, where do you stand on this issue with the Ukraine? Because obviously, I don't trust the guy. I'm a firm believer he wants to reinstate the USSR. I'm a firm believer that is his goal, as his legacy. He knows he's aging. He knows he's getting out of there. And I think if he's able to take the Ukraine, whoever he is mentoring in the background will continue his legacy of pushing that forward, because he's always been pushing multipolarism. That has been his thing for like the last 20 years. We can't have a hegemon anymore. The hegemonic system is rooted in violence. That's his argument. And it should just be these multipolar states, these big actors controlling their areas. And I think that's what he's pushing for here by establishing the USSR again in that region. So I have to ask you, you know, I get his argument. I get why we don't want it to happen, because you're afraid of him pushing further into Europe. But in the same breath, the Republicans are right. This ain't our problem, and it's a costly problem. And that technocratic mentality that we should be the saviors of the world.
Well, some Republicans. That's not all.
Not all of them. Yeah,
that's
Lindsey
like,
Graham just recently flipped, so it's starting to be very drastic now.
I think it depends. Well, it depends what Trump says.
Yes,
Then
I
they
agree.
follow what Trump says.
I agree,
yeah.
because they're all trying to get along with that base.
Exactly.
Because J.D. Vance was pure. If J.D. Vance actually told what he wanted to say, he would probably be against Vladimir Putin. I understand that the Republican Party has been shifting towards more of that radicalized side. My thing is, there is a legitimate situation here where we can't be the technocratic group that is pushing ourselves as the hegemon, trying to resolve people's issues. It's too costly of a conflict.
Yeah.
Like, it's becoming Vietnam at this point. And it's a conversation of who's willing to give up first their, based on how many resources they're wasting in this war. People are dying. People are displaced. Putin is not going to have a legitimate election. You're talking about 6 million displaced people from the Ukraine. It's just not going to happen. But
you mean Zelensky won't have a?
oh no, Zelensky. I'm sorry. Yeah, Zelensky wouldn't have a legitimate election. Yeah. So it's like, I get both sides. There's a lot of issues here, but there is a legitimate frustration here where we can't afford this. We shouldn't have to take this on. We are not the superheroes of the world. You remember when Obama said that we're not the police of the world, and I fully believe that in my heart. And I think a lot of technocratic policy people would disagree with that and think that we should be involved in this. But in the same breath, I don't trust him, and I don't believe in what he's saying. And I understand that his goal is multipolarism. So, year 8, U.S. rep. How do you deal with this issue, especially because if we go to war, or you're distributing funds to a conflict, that's your vote as power of the purse.
Yeah. So I would say, well, if we're talking about this in year 8, where this is a completely different thing.
Well, we're saying you're year 8 right now.
Oh, year 8 right now.
And this comes up.
My position that shouldn't change whether I'm year 8 or now. I mean, well, because here's the thing: the Congress is you know, congressional authority over this is sort of different because the U.S. is not directly in. There was no war authorization. So that's what I'm saying.
It's a proxy. I understand.
From a congressional authority. So my position year 8 now stays is the same. My point on this is essentially, one, I don't want this to go on forever, right? I would hope that if Vladimir Putin was thinking about the long-term interests for himself, and separated that from the long-term interests for his people, I think those might be two different answers. My theory of the case here is this, right? NATO, to your point, you got it exactly right, and this is a historical fact that NATO exists to counter the USSR because of that, the threat. You have the Warsaw Pact countries. You have NATO as a counterbalance to unite Europe to prevent another world war. In effect, now that caused that division between those countries who were once allies in World War II to different. But look at the collapse of the USSR when you allowed private sector to grow in Russia. When you had Boris Yeltsin as president, you also had
Afghanistan.
No, but let's talk. I'm just talking about us.
I get what
right.
you
We had
mean,
normalization.
Yeah,
there was McDonald's.
I remember.
Right.
That's why Putin got elected because they weren't okay with that. Yeah.
Right. So there was a integration of Russia into Europe. Russia doesn't want that. They don't right now. And in fact, when I, as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, sit with leaders from Baltic states, from the Caucasus, people who are proximate, they're afraid that they will be next in the reconstruction of USSR. That is not good for the world.
I agree.
Right. And so my hope is that, one, Putin is sufficiently weakened by this situation. But right now, Donald Trump is propping him up. He's saying, like, to do what he did to Zelensky in the Oval Office made Vladimir Putin happy.
It did.
100%.
They had a phone call after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I look, these, I don't know the insides of it, but I'm sure there are more than one way that people are communicating the intentions here. I don't know what the intentions are. I do know that Donald Trump has said, he says, I want this done. I want this. I don't want to deal with it. It's not my pancake. I don't want to lead a war. Here's the thing. We don't have American troops on the front line formally. We have technical advisors, but we don't. I fear that because of, you remember Article 5 in NATO.
I understand.
Says that you attack one, you attack all. And I don't want a single American troop on the ground there. They are, in fact, right now fighting for the democratic values that we profess. So my hope is that from a military perspective, we will sufficiently convince Putin that that's not a path forward to continue this war, that there will be a negotiation after we have demonstrated a capacity to win, and that Ukraine doesn't end up weakened, and that they get security assurances from our country, from all of NATO, right? There is, I don't want war anywhere.
Yeah.
There's no benefit to the prolonging of death and suffering, period. However, if Vladimir Putin sees this as an incomplete victory, he'll come back. That's what you remember. They had a ceasefire before.
Yeah.
They had a ceasefire before that was violated. And then he said, nope, in 2022, we're going back. We're doing this again. We are going to get the territories that we want. And it's disruptive to the world. Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world, right? So, again, we need a resolution here. I don't know if Putin is willing to make the concessions necessary because he has lost a lot. They've lost a lot of people in this. Ukraine has lost a lot of people in this. When you go this far deep and what you got to project back to your people is strength, he's in a tough place. He's conscripted people from North Korea to go fight in Ukraine in this war. That's not a winning strategy. He can't mobilize from his own populace.
Of course.
So I would say, and it's nuanced, right? My position, like, this is the thing. Foreign policy is always hard to talk about because it's nuanced and it's not black and white. You know this, right? Yeah. And so my goal, ultimately, from my position is I don't want Putin to leave and perceive victory, and I do want this to end. And I would be hopeful that it's one. Where Ukraine can get the safety it deserves. Russia says, you know what, I'm going to stay within my real borders, and let's move on. And
Yeah.
so but again, that's overly simplified because there's a lot.
There's a lot that goes with that. And I'm sorry to interrupt. It's
Yeah, go for it.
This is where like I get frustrated with this foreign policy conversation because I fully understand what you're saying. And obviously, I think you're right. Putin has no interest of being a part of Europe. But obviously, Russia has had a long history with this issue. They're the savages of the East. That is what they've been referred to as. There's a reason why communism worked in Russia. These were the people that were regarded by the European high class civil society as like, they're our ugly cousins. They are the savages. They're the bottom of the group. And it's been a back and forth of this conversation of, am I European? Am I Asian? What am I? What is my identity? There's been a long-standing identity crisis in Russia. So I get why Putin has taken this mentality on that front because that's always been an issue for them. But the other issue is their border is fried. And this is a conversation nobody wants to have. What we did in the Middle East with the Arab Springs, and everyone is cheering what happened with Assad, that destabilizes a region. And this is something that since Dick Cheney, ironically, the dude who sent us into Iraq, has been saying, once you start taking out these leaders, you create quagmires. And this is the problem on Vladimir Putin's front is like, you're killing the people. Not only am I aligned with them, but I'm also dependent on them to keep stability in this region, whether it's done democratically or not.
Who is depending on who? I'm sorry.
Putin is depending on people like the head of Iran. He was depending on Assad because that terrorism has leaked into his borders, and that destabilization of the region is being affected by. It's facing his country. So I can see why I don't want to be a part of Europe because there's a long-standing issue with me in Europe. And I don't want to be a part of the West because the West has a Russia phobia against me. You have an entire organization that is against me. I don't
know if it's a Russia phobia. I just think that we have two distinct interests. This is interest alignment. Like phobia indicates that we don't like them for being them. No, I don't. I don't have a problem with Russians. I have a problem.
I'm not saying you.
I'm saying we have a problem with their leader, Vladimir Putin, who is causing death and destruction, and is also mobilizing on other continents. Right, as you know.
I understand. I think I call it a phobia solely, and this is something we talked about a lot in Russian foreign policy, because this is where the hegemon becomes so egotistical it doesn't see itself in the mirror. And the reality is, as the hegemon, you think it's your responsibility to do these things. But in reality, he has a point. You've been fucking up. And you've been destabilizing regions and spreading it into other people's parts. And it feels like it gets to a point where you don't even care what these people want.
Yeah, but
you don't care what their interests are.
But don't forget that he went and invaded these
I know.
people,
I'm well aware. No, he's not a hero in my story.
Yeah. So we don't want to absolve him of responsibility.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
I hear you.
It's because foreign policy is very complicated.
Exactly. No, you get it.
And I understand there's two sides to this conversation. And I understand that as a nation state, you're always going to see it only from your perspective because you're the nation state. But there's a legitimate problem here. He has his own interests he has to take care of. And obviously right now the interest is spreading my empire. But when you try to put in his perspective, of course that would be his interest because when we take control, we do everything just for ourselves and we continue to destabilize those borders.
Yeah, I guess I'm not focused on Vladimir Putin's interest. I think that's just like, not when you have run, roughshod over your neighbors, when you are, in
a tyrant.
You're a part of this excess of real problem for the the U.S. interests. And at the end of the day, this is about preservation of our interests. Like alignment with North Korea, alignment with Iran will never, and China is never going to be sort of in line with the other worldview. As you said, this is. I will say, to your point though, I think the world is struggling with a post-Trump world order.
Yeah.
And I think it was preceded by a lot of things, and Trump is completely destabilizing every alliance that we've had before. I mean, France, the UK, the oldest of our friends, Canada. He's saying, you know what, Canada, I'm done with you. That is problematic, and that's why I as someone who thinks more about foreign policy now than I ever had before, that is the thing that is something that I struggle with right now, is that we are having all of these conflicts at the same time.
Yeah.
Some of them are self-inflicted because of the president's nature. Some of them predated it because of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine and all of their other activities. But this is the most unstable the world, I think, has been in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I
all
can
my
agree with-
37 years. Yeah, for sure.
Because this is so connecting this.
Yeah, hit
Next
me.
question. Because you kind of answered it. I see what your viewpoint is. So, Israel and Palestine, because that is another proxy, and it is the same problem where you have both sides on opposite ends. I checked your record. I'm sorry. I know there was a ceasefire on the table that they tried to get into the House. You were not one of the sponsors of the ceasefire.
Well, I think you said you can. That was a one member's bill.
Yeah.
And then that was not. I wouldn't describe it as a ceasefire like the current one that we have now. This was like a member who said.
Yeah, I kind of read it.
You want to explain it or?
So from what I understood,
but there's a ceasefire right now.
I understand. Yeah,
my
so
point.
I'm looking back then.
Yeah.
So your mindset at that moment.
Yeah, there was
never
never a vote on that bill. There was never anything like that. So
I'm aware, but I know there were sponsors. There were people like pushing for it.
Yeah, there were lots of sponsors. Yeah.
Not see your name. Would like an explanation on your stance on that, because obviously it's easier now because hindsight's 2020. You already got the ceasefire, but at the time, why? I didn't see advocacy on my end. I might not have researched enough, but like your advocacy on the ceasefire, were you in favor of it?
Yeah, so that bill was put in even before the conflict had even started, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Hamas, straight up, terrorist organization that needs to be rooted out. We need to give the Palestinian people their opportunity to have real leadership. They have to have real leadership that's looking out for them, that is not inspiring a conflict. What happened on October 7th and all of the suffering that has happened since should not have happened. Okay. No one should suffer because of the decision of a small political leadership. Right. And so thousands of people, tens of thousands of people have lost their lives for no good reason and have already been living in a undesirable situation. And so that bill wasn't going anywhere, wasn't going to be part of the solution. Right now is where I'm focused, because I know you want to go backwards, but I'm going to be focused on the now. We have a ceasefire that's about to fall apart.
Yeah, I've seen.
Right.
Yeah.
and so I, again, looking backwards isn't helpful for me in dealing with the moment that we're in now. Right. Because you have, Israel, who is moving forward aggressively with strikes that aren't going to further the path to peace.
Oh, I love this.
And so we need a long-term peace.
Yeah.
We need to go from ceasefire to restoring humanitarian aid. We had hundreds of trucks, thousands in a week going in to Gaza to help these poor people. We got zero now. They stopped. Mm-hmm. All right. That's like, I think when people get into the high-mindedness, I want to solve what's right in front of me.
I understand.
Which is, how do I, again, we're limited because the president has very unilateral ability to move here. In fact, has overridden congressional desire to have the real legitimate questions answered about the process of moving forward. And so that's where I'm fixated. Is I've been talking about this aid thing for a while, because unless it's reasonable and robust, reasonable at the minimum, robust and where it should be, that's life and death for people just as much as the conflict of war. And so that's my priority.
Because, all right, perfect. Now that I understand your stance, because when you were in the White House, and you know this, John, was it John Kerry? That was the Secretary of State at the time under Obama?
When? He was his second Secretary of State.
And then Obama and Biden all collaboratively worked together to undermine Netanyahu. They did not like him because they knew that he was deliberately working to sabotage the Iran nuclear deal. They knew he was a danger to the region. They understood that he was destabilizing a lot of their ceasefire attempts, and we're watching it happen again where Netanyahu continues this behavior. I'm never going to forget when Netanyahu went to Congress without Obama's permission, without letting him know, and straight down talked the entire administration for the way they were handling the situation.
Yeah.
That makes the situation look like there is a foreign entity making decisions for the United States at that point, for the public at least. My thing with this situation is looking at that, Gabe Amo, not the president, Gabe Amo, what do you think is a way to resolve this issue? Because I'm watching in Israel and a Netanyahu that is mobilized and inspired to continue to push into the Middle East. Assad is gone. They're trying to take that portion of Syria. They're already moving laterally in there. They're bombing Lebanon.
Yeah.
So
what I want to see, and I've spent some time with these leaders. I really want to see leaders from the Middle East rise up to form and support and really elevate a leadership for the Palestinian people, right? That's Saudi Arabia, that's Qatar, that's Jordan, that's Egypt. Because the challenge here is there's no governance structure for them. Yeah, they're in the middle of war, but once that stops, who is Netanyahu talking to, right? It's got to be in part these leaders that I've identified, but we got to have these other Arab nations as part of a governing coalition, so that we can say to Prime Minister Netanyahu, here's who you are dealing with. You're dealing with this coalition of folks, so that we are doing this in the right way. Because at the end of the day, I believe we need a two states. I do believe in a two-state solution. It's going to be really hard to get to, but I think that's the only way to break the cycle. Because what you have is, you have terrorism rise, not the fault of the people, but we see that happen, and it festers in these circumstances. And then you get into this downward spiral, and then we're doing this over and over and over again. And so what I've said, I was just with a group of these leaders last week, ambassadors, etc. It's one of the privileges that I get to serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee, to say, what can we do? How can you be more persuasive? Because here's the thing, it's in Israel's interests if all of those folks are united, right? And they haven't always just demonstrated that.
No, of course, there's an Iran and Saudi Arabia issue.
And especially if they are benefiting from normalized trade relations, normalized relations with Saudi Arabia and economic power there. That's in their interests, right? And so that's what I would be fixated on. Now here's the thing, I don't know if that's where the administration is, and that's what happens, right? That's the divide between Congress and an administration at any given point in time. You know this, right? The foreign policy is executed by the people who hold the executive branch.
The commander in chief. I understand.
Right, the executive branch, the State Department, they are exercising that. Right, so Congress is advisory in this period. It's a little more helpful when you're in the same party, because then you have a little more influence. But at the end of the day, that's happening out of the White House. It's not happening out of Congress. And so that is one of the diplomatic relations, and that's the way our system works, right? It's focused on the executive, the head of state.
So you could correct me here.
Yeah.
But from what I understood, Biden was not doing what you're talking about, was not trying to create this coalition, because at the end of the day, for the people who know the Middle East, and I've studied the Middle East a lot when I was in college and in high school, at the end of the day, there is a Saudi and Iranian issue. That secular conflict continues. They're both fighting to be number one in the region. And the United States and Russia are playing proxy with this problem. And they're playing into both sides. And I at no point felt like Joe Biden.
I know Saudi Arabia is a little more complicated, but I will accept the premise.
Yeah, because I know Saudi Arabia also, they do a lot of shiesty and shady things. I know the Saudi princes are all divided. I understand.
So again, this is why this stuff is really hard to, we need hours to talk about some of this.
But my point is more towards, you are using a proxy in this region. And that's how this was pushed for a lot of it. I don't see an effort to unify. I see an effort to conquer and to ensure. It feels like the United States is trying to push out Russian influence in that region and take control.
Well, look, I don't know if that's true under Donald Trump.
Under Biden, I saw a lot of that.
I don't think push out is necessarily the goal, but to have our allies be stronger than their ally. I think for sure.
Yo, you're
right?
such a great politician.
Right? I mean, no, but that's real. That's real. We want our team to be stronger than their team.
Yeah.
Iran is with them, so we're not rocking with Iran. So,
But then there's no. How is there going to be a coalition if Iran's
Well,
one of the biggest?
Iran doesn't.
powers in the
I didn't
region?
invite them to this coalition that I
Oh
designed.
no! This is part of the problem.
I did
though.
not. No, because not when they are trying to assassinate people in this country. Not when they are.
But we do the same thing.
Here's the
we
thing.
Who killed Saddam Hussein?
Look,
Who destabilized Afghanistan?
we're down a rabbit hole.
Yo, but this is kind of my point. Is I get why they have the mentality they have.
Yeah, but you don't got to be with them.
I'm not with them. I'm just saying they have a reason to feel some type of way.
So let them feel that type of way. But like, here's the thing: American interests are that's what I care about.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, how what it means and how it translates to our country being a stable place for us to live and grow. And that's all it flows back. Foreign policy feeds into that. But also you think about the other parts of the world. You think about Africa. You think about, we haven't even talked about China. China's
a whole beast.
We don't even have to time. We'll do a part 2 on China at some point. But no, I hear you.
No,
Hey,
and
look,
I get what you're saying. At the end of the day, you represent Rhode Island in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal is U.S. foreign interests. What I'm saying is, speaking on a foreign policy matter, at the end of the day, there seems to be this disconnect where people believe that U.S. foreign interests never means the stability of a region. And the fact that Europe is now facing the backlash, the cultural, economic, and political backlash of mass migration by a culture that is radically different from yours.
which way?
It's a lot the Arab migration that
You're
happened.
talking about the migratory? Yes.
And we watched it. That's why Britain wanted to leave the EU. This was like a whole thing. There is a benefit in not fueling conflicts. There is a benefit in not doing these things.
Don't discount the impact of climate change. Don't impact, here's the thing is, look, if you can't do the agriculture or perform the agriculture that you normally could because of the change in weather patterns, that forces migration. There are a lot of, and that, that's influenced some of the migration that we've experienced too. Obviously that's got layers to unpeel, but I hear you. The fact of the matter is that these complex relationships that are about how our power relates to one another in the world are the things that are driving, conflict, right? And my hope is that we can build long-term a world where those conflicts are resolved, that America still gets to set the pace, but I want others to rise too. I don't think America being the leader means that other people are subordinate to us. I think that means that we can lift up a global economy that fits together, a place where people feel stable. Everybody has an opportunity in the future. It may be different and look like different things in different places, but that is the world that we aspire to. That's the thing you dream of. Now, do we get there today? It doesn't happen in a snap, but maybe I'll call you for some ideas to get there.
No, you're funny. I appreciate it. That was nice. You're a good politician. This is my last question. The future of your party. So let's have fun here.
Let's have fun. It's all fun.
No, it's all fun. Jay, the reality is,
Noel is extremely passionate, guys. In case you
He's
didn't,
feeling it right now. He's feeling it.
This guy's
Keep
jittery.
going, brother.
My God, this guy's jittery over here.
Here's the thing. This is
This is the dance.
This is what is important. This is why I'm on here, because we have to have these conversations.
Yeah. No, 100%.
We can't just do them online in chats. And,
No, that's
and
ridiculous.
comments.
Yeah.
But hit me.
So your party has no leadership. It sucks. I had to say it like that just to be funny.
Dang.
Now, is that opinion or fact?
No, it's kind of fact. Yo, so this is the issue. It's very clear what they're doing. JD Vance is going to run for president after this is said and done. The fact that JD Vance is speaking during a meeting with a foreign leader, I've never seen a VP talk in my life.
Yeah, I don't know if he had permission to do that.
And I think he did.
You think?
And I think they're setting him up to run. I think he is their front runner. I think he's a great front runner because despite popular belief, J.D. Vance was not a Trump supporter. J.D. Vance was actually a moderate Republican in Ohio.
And then
switched
hard 2 years ago.
And I think he has the
when
ability
he ran for Senate.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think he has the ability to code switch incredibly well. I think he's very educated. And I think he's well spoken. I think he would be their front runner. Sadly for us, our front runner would be the sociopath in California, Gavin Newsom. I call him the sociopath because that's a joke on Twitter that he's crazy.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah. That he's like obsessed with progressive values to a point where it's sociopathic. And no, it's the funniest thing in in the world. I agree with them. Like he is the equivalent. They call him like Democratic Trump. Like he is
really?
like like he will sit in a debate and just destroy you.
He's
Cool.
good.
He's good.
He's good at talking. I don't know about the podcast though, but he's good at talking.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he's absolutely right. So this is my frustration. Could Gavin Newsom beat JD Vance? I think so. My thing is,
Yeah.
I don't see any of you guys winning the House and the Senate. And the reason why is because you guys really suck at promoting yourselves and trying to gravitate a base and gravitate onto policies the way that the Republicans have been able to do.
Well, they only got 3 policies. They want to control your body. They want to take your money.
You see, you got to cut this script, bro.
Hey, look, tell me that's not true.
Bro, I'm watching.
They don't want to
Republican-
take your money. What are they trying to do right now? I'm just saying that's
Because
their
this is-
reconciliation bill.
but this is part of the
this is why we
problem.
got to break down and explain this stuff to people because I'm on the House Budget Committee.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in a 12-hour hearing where they talk about wanting to continue tax cuts for the wealthiest.
I understand.
I'm not getting that tax cut. You're not getting that tax
None of us
cut.
are.
You're not getting that tax cut. Like $1.1 trillion going to the top 1%. So when I say they want your money, I'm not joking. When they're firing all these people in the federal government, regular people who got their good government job, whose money are they taking?
No, it's
so that's what I'm saying. So,
I understand.
that's not me. That's not me trying to like be party line. But that's the truth. It's let's drill, baby, drill. Let's
Of course.
let's tell people what to do with their bodies, and then let's transfer money to billionaires.
So this is the great
That's
conflict.
that's real.
Because I'll tell you straight up, I'm personally not a Republican, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm also not a Democrat.
Yeah. You're definitely an independent. I can see
Nah,
that.
yeah. No, but it's funny because I put Democrats in office. God bless. But it's because I vote. It's more about the individual person.
Yeah.
Aligning
As
yourself
it should be always be.
Aligning yourself to a party and an ideology is incredibly dangerous, and it's led people to do some problematic things. And that's how I live my life. So this is my thing. I get what you're saying, but it sounds like the script. And
If it sounds like the script, then maybe you know the script. But like
I know the script.
But I'm saying.
But I'll
that's
tell you,
how-
the
that's
script
how I
isn't
feel.
working though.
Yeah, but that's my truth.
I get it, but what I'm saying is
Yeah.
the way that the way the Democratic Party is approaching this issue is not working, and it's getting to a point.
Which
where,
issue though?
So the issue of Donald Trump, because the reality is when she ran for office, Kamala, bro, why are you running so like your biggest selling point was this thing on abortion, and women's reproductive rights. There's a freaking housing crisis in this country. You passed this random bill in the middle of this election cycle. I mean, this policy suggestion. You don't even really run on it. You don't really talk about it. Inflation is killing you, and you can't really speak on it because the inflation is being caused by the fact that Biden was still continuing Trump's tariffs. I know that. And I know that was playing a big role.
That was not causing inflation.
That was part of the reason the inflation.
No, we can talk about the math.
We could talk for hours.
We could talk the math.
We could talk the math.
But we're not going to talk hours today, Noel.
Depends on the economics you're asking. That was one of the partial reasons why it was happening.
Yeah.
So there's things you just couldn't avoid to speak on because you're talking about your own administration, the problems it has. But the approach she took was terrible. The script of drill, baby, drill. She was for fracking.
Yeah.
The idea that
but my point is that's all they talk about. We're talking about. She was also talking about other solutions as well. Like these guys just undid everything on wind energy in the first day, right? And so my point is, I hear your point. She talked about the housing thing, but here's the thing: a lot of stuff wasn't breaking through because, and this is one of the reasons I'm here is the media landscape.
Of course.
Is completely different than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's this great chart. I wish I had it with me pulled up on my phone. But basically, like, conservative podcasters dominate all of the news. Twitter dominates all of the news. Kamala Harris won the election with people who watched TV news or who read newspapers.
Yeah.
She won it by like 20 points with those segments of the population. Where where she didn't win it? With everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's most of us.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't turn my TV on unless I'm watching like Hulu or Max. Most people consume their stuff from YouTube.
Yeah.
Just like it's on tonight,
100%.
most people consume it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So like I think one thing we failed on is that there's been a 40 to 50 year conservative project on how to build an ecosystem, and then they figure out the right tools in the last few years and set it on fire. And they've done some work with that. We have to get to people where they are, because even like she went on the Breakfast Club, very important, but that's just one place.
Yeah.
And it can't just be one messenger. The thing about Trump is he's got a lot of messengers.
No, yeah, Joe Rogan, all these people.
And we have to build that. So to your point on who's the leader in the party, we all got to assume the mantle. We can't just let there be one. If you, like, we have a multi-leader party. We always have. We're a Big Ten. We're a Big Ten, and it's good that we're a Big Ten. But the way we talk about things in Rhode Island isn't the same way they talk about things in Ohio. Isn't the same way they talk about things in Georgia. Isn't the same way in Texas. So we have to meet the moment in the right places. And I think we got to talk. We didn't talk about our policy successes enough in a digestible way. Because how I explained this last election, I say 2 sentences. I say, 1, people are working harder than ever, and they don't feel like they're getting ahead. And the second thing is, I'm playing by the rules, others aren't. What's up with that? And then you look across some of the places where we lost. And remember, this was not a blowout election. This was 49.8% to 48.3%, based something like that, very close to it. He didn't win 50% of the vote in the popular vote. Now, he won all the swing states, but he didn't win by a blowout. So I always say a close election, and you're an organizer, close election, that's your fault. That's our fault.
Yeah.
We should have been able to close the gap. If it was a blowout election, I would have said, nah. But if you can't close the gap, if you can't get to people where they are, that's the lesson. And that's why you're going to see, I think we can win the House. Here's why I think we can win the House. 1, it is the most focused thing that's possible. We only need 4 seats, right? I hope we get some of those 4 seats on some key legislation where people are embarrassed to cut the Medicaid of their grandma or cut the SNAP benefits of their cousins. I want to see that possibility of getting some of them on. But if we don't, and we go to next November, the House is the closest thing we can get. The Senate is really hard, just based on the map.
I understand.
The House is the closest, and we were very, very close. We got about 20 good shots across the country, and you're going to see us out there. But here's the thing, and I say this to you out of respect, we can't be so insulated from criticism. If people don't like something about what we're doing, we got to take it, adapt, and respond. And so if you tell me we got to fix things in the party, I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to say I don't like your party. That's not going to work. I'm going to say, what's the specifics? Okay. And to help me help, because I want to make this country a place where everybody can thrive. America's a great place. Like, these MAGA guys are saying they're making it again. America's a great place, but where we struggle is making sure that everybody has a pathway to success. And I say that from my own life experience. This is a kid from the bucket who got to go to Congress, who was working for people every single day. And I don't want my story to be exceptional. I want everybody to, whether you have your small business, whether you got your PhD, whether you're just that community dude who takes care of everybody. I want everybody to have a pathway to success, opportunity, happiness, and the freedoms that they deserve. That's what this country should be about. That's what this state should be about. It's easier said than done, but that's why I'm here. And so I didn't mean to give you a big speech.
No, you're fine.
But we got to talk about values. Democrats we can talk about policy, but we also got to talk about values, like housing crisis. But you know what? The value under housing is community and economic prosperity. Because where's everybody's wealth? In your house. Yeah. Right. So, but if you disconnect it, because if I try to explain, Kamala talked about Vice President Harris. No, I'm just saying. I know her personally.
You know her.
Exactly. No, you got to.
But she talked about a first-time home buyers grant of $25,000.
That's just increasing demand, though.
Right. Well, but you're talking about policy. You're not talking about values. Nobody cares about that.
But that's not solving the problem.
But you are not mapping out. But again, that's a demand side issue.
We have a supply side problem.
But there was also the supply side in the policy. You forgot the supply
I
side.
know, I did see the
Yeah,
supply side,
that's
but
what I'm
it's
saying.
like, it wasn't
I'm
even good
saying.
enough though, because you're still not dealing with the individual states' regulatory
Sure,
laws.
but you're talking about policy. I'm talking about values.
I understand.
People vote on values,
I
not
understand they
on
vote on
policy.
You're right.
And so that's why we have to get to what's in here. What's the spirit level version of this? How do I make somebody's existence better? And frankly, Donald Trump appealed to some of that, right? Because if he made you feel victimized by everything, if he said everybody's working against, then he's gonna have some appeal. But he doesn't mean that.
Of course not.
This dude he doesn't care about you. He doesn't. And like, I'm not expecting him to. But that's why we have to put forward a compelling vision, a compelling message that says, I care about you. I want you to do well. Yes, this country has things that are wrong with it, but there's nothing wrong with it that can't be fixed with what's right. Bill Clinton said that. So that's what it's about. I'm seeing Madeline. She's fading a little bit.
Yeah.
So we gotta wrap soon.
No, I know we gotta wrap up soon. This is literally my last thing.
Hit me.
I agree with you, fully agree with you on a lot of the things that you're saying. But I will say this: your party has, because the other party I don't care who started it. You are responding to a message of division with your own message of division.
Where's my division?
Not you specifically.
Yeah.
A lot
But where's the
of,
party's
a lot of
division?
your OGs in the House and in the Senate.
Yeah.
The narrative that Trump and his supporters are against democracy, that they're hateful people, that
But
they
he
don't
just
care about America.
he just told the courts, I don't care about your rulings.
Yeah, that's cool, but you don't tell half the country that. If you tell half the voting bloc that they are hateful, problematic people,
But that's a different thing.
what they're doing.
But that's a different thing than what I just said. I'm
know.
talking about
Him is
Trump
different.
Evading democratic norms of law
I
and
agree.
order and courts and the justice system that's independent of the president. There's that. But I agree with you. We cannot make, to your point, we can't make people feel like they're bad people. And that's not good. It's never, and we haven't done a good job about separating the voters from the man, because I know a lot of Trump supporters. I got a lot of votes from Trump supporters. You can't get 64% of the vote and have Trump, get, what do you get, 40 some odd in
was
my
more this
district.
time, yeah.
I think a little more in the second district than the first, without there being some overlap. There are thousands of people who voted for me and Donald Trump who said, I like Gabe and I like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I will never say to them, you're a bad person. I'd love to talk to them and understand where they were, but I got to understand them, and just like they should understand me, and we got to understand one another. But you're 100% right, and we did a lot of that.
There was a large ego and unwillingness.
And I want to say we, but I said that message broke through, where I don't think we actually demonize the other. But if people feel like that, right, it's like the Maya Angelou thing. People forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So if people felt like that, that's wrong. We can't hate an American for their vote. I might have some questions why you're voting for both of us, but I want to understand it.
You also, this is my thing though. What comes with that is you can't remove yourself from platforms that are conservative based.
Yeah, of course.
You can't say, I'm not going to go on that platform. I'm not going to talk to this person. And that is something the Democratic Party has been doing, where they're saying, I don't want to talk to this person because I don't want to platform hate. That's not how this works. You know this from college. Your ideology, you have to fight for it. You have to debate out your beliefs. There's no, I'm going to push you out of a room and not have you be heard, because that's not how debate works.
Yeah, you gotta find people where they are. I've been on, radio stations and other places where people tell me they dislike me, and I say, thank you for your constructive feedback, and I move on. I don't expect everybody to like me, but I think you're right. You have to go to places where people may not love you, but on top of that, beyond where you're going, you have to surround yourself with different people. You have to surround yourself with people who may not have the same viewpoint as you. Look, we had a spirited conversation. You know what? We're gonna dap each other up after this, and that's what it's supposed to be about. And so, look, I'm grateful for you guys for having a platform, for keeping it real. I'll come back if you let me.
100%. Open door. Listen,
we'll do it.
open door policy here with you. You could come back at any point, any given time. I feel like it's definitely necessary to have. Me personally, I love. I love talking about when it comes to did Drake win the beef or not. I'm passionate about that, but reality, I am a father, and I do love and embrace Rhode Island to the fullest extent. I never see myself leaving the state. So I do care way more fundamentally about local politics and things happening in my community and things that affect day-to-day basis and can affect my child, you know. So when it comes to these type of conversations, I think they're powerful and they're necessary to have.
Yeah.
And forming a relationship with someone like you that is so powerful in the actual political world and represents our state, I think is necessary. So this is definitely part one of many
Question
more.
for you guys.
Yeah.
See, because I'm a little bit of an OG, and we're talking about
Yeah.
Drake and Kendrick. Question: Section 80 or So Far Gone? Oh, see, if y'all don't know,
So Far Gone. No. Ooh. Section 80.
High Power.
I think So Far Gone. Because
I'm
So Far
not mad
Gone,
at you.
if we're talking about,
To throw up.
it's like, it's very more influential.
It was.
It was.
It
That's
changed
the
music
thing.
forever.
It did, but he kind of was ripping off of Cudi and Kanye to
Yeah,
put
yeah.
that
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But still, he put it on the mainstream. That's the problem.
He did. No, that I mean, I remember when I got that in, it must have been 2010, 2011. And then Section 80, I got around the same time. And then J. Cole's first thing dropped, but he's not in the conversation. And Section 80, I felt Kendrick's potential from it. You knew where he was going to end up from that. Drake has taken us a lot of different places. That's the thing. He's more versatile.
Yeah, I remember listening to Rigor Mortis like it was yesterday. Like that song dropped and he's in the middle of the street rapping, and then you got the Section 80 project.
F
and-
your ethnicity.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that was a crazy moment. Listen, you know your stuff. I've heard
Look,
stories. I
I'm-
heard
look,
stories.
I'm an OG. I
you
mean,
you could basically be a co-host,
Look,
to be honest.
I haven't listened to any albums that's come out in the last 2 years. So like,
damn.
so
Jesus Christ.
except I was like, you know, in the beef, I was paying attention to
Yeah.
that 3 weekends of back and forth. But so I gotta dust up before I come
You gotta
back.
listen to that new Playboy Cardi album, right, Marlon? He's gotta listen to it.
Album was amazing.
You should listen. That'll be crazy to get. But listen, no, I do appreciate you coming by.
Man, appreciate you.
I think that
guys.
this is something like I said, necessary to happen. It's I love like what's going on. Even people, he's facing his criticism, but I do love seeing like Gavin Newsom like going with the podcast route and all that. I'm like, wow, it's very interesting to me, like, because this is the space, like independent platforms that's where media is at. It's no longer traditional media, and we are granted, and blessed to have, the number one independent platform in the state. So I think it's essential to connect with you. I want to continue having that relationship going forward. So, round of applause. Thank you very much for coming by. Brother Gabe, we appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much.
Past my bedtime.
And that was a clip from our podcast, the Club Ambition Podcast. Cap, if you're looking to watch the full episode, make sure to go check it out right now. It's available on audio and also on YouTube.